So first off, yes, I am aware that I changed shirts for this video. Blue was the color of the Jedi in Star Wars, and red is the color of the Sith in Star Wars as well. So I figured that would actually kind of work for this video. But meanwhile, let's just get into it. Some of the worst of 2025. I already talked about the movies that gave me hope for cinema, the movies that I had a lot of fun with. Now let's talk about the movies that are the exact opposite. The movies that made me mad. The movies that I just questioned everything about. The ones that I just sat back and just I really did not like these movies, to say the least. And as always, let's get into some dishonorable mentions. First up, Him. This movie should have been really good, but it clearly has Jordan Peele syndrome, where it clearly wants to be a Jordan Peele movie, but it feels like one in name only. The fact that he only produced this movie actually kind of hurts this movie. This movie has so much symbolism in it that it's just beating you over the head with it. The lead in this movie is not that interesting. It's horribly edited. I just did not care for this movie one bit. Happy Gilmore 2. This movie made me mad within the first 10 minutes, and it did not get much better. A movie this lazy should not happen. Like, it just uses clips from the first movie to pad the runtime, basically. A lot of the stuff that happens in this movie is just unfunny, and also just having Happy be a sad alcoholic in this movie is just not funny. I don't get why they thought this was actually a good idea, but it just should not exist. Love Hurts. This actually does hurt because I love Kiwi Kwan. But man, did this movie suck. This movie was not fun. It was not funny. It's barely feature length. It's just not a good time. It's so disappointing. Flight Risk. Y'all need a pilot? No, but y'all need a better screenplay. This movie sucked. This movie doesn't know what to do for like 90 minutes. And then by the end, it's like, oh, we have to wrap this up, I guess. How'd that happen? Mark Wahlberg is pretty bad in this movie, but then again, he's also unconscious for a good portion of the movie, so that's helpful. Michelle Dockery, not very good in this movie. Topher Grace is pretty annoying in this movie. It just pads the runtime by doing insanely stupid things, and it's just a movie that does not work. Minecraft movie. I don't know what was worse, the movie or some people who went bananas in movie theaters. This movie was not good in my opinion. I did not find this movie interesting. The world itself looked pretty cool, but other than that, I didn't find a lot of this movie good. I found the performances pretty lacking. I found the characters to be poorly written. I thought the jokes were just really bad in my opinion. And the subplot with Jennifer Coolidge going on a date, there was no point for that. None whatsoever. None. Lilo and Stitch. Oh man, this movie makes me mad. This was the only live action remake I was actually kind of looking forward to because it did have people coming back from the original to work on this movie. But man, did this movie just made me mad. This movie just made me mad in a lot of reasons. Now, despite Stitch looking very cute, everything else about this movie fell flat. The changes they make are just unforgivable. And it's just one of those movies where it's honestly one of the few Disney live action remakes that I would say is insulting to the original movie. It's bad, you guys. But speaking of bad Disney live action remakes, let's talk about Snow White, the movie that's on everyone's worst of the year list, whether or not they saw it. Well, I did see it before I could talk shit about it. But yeah, this movie's awful. The performances themselves, Rachel Zegler is at least tolerable in the lead role. I will say Gal Gadot is just horrible in this movie. She is terrible in this movie. Doesn't feel like there's any energy. There's just nothing that really works in this movie. The CGI dwarves are just terrifying. The musical numbers are not the best. They're very forgettable. It's a very bland movie, and it's just a shame that this was Disney's first animated movie, and it was the movie that almost destroyed them last year, and that is very upsetting. And yeah, I at least saw it before I could talk smack about it. Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey, more like a bland, boring Burger King ad. This movie is one of those movies where I see the cast and crew and I'm like, everyone involved in this movie should have known better. But this movie it's just very dull and very lifeless, and I just couldn't care about anyone or anything that happened in this movie. The second that Margot Robbie says that she can eat a cheeseburger every day, I immediately was like, nope. And that's towards the beginning of the movie too. But also this movie is unnecessarily rated R. Like, they have the F-bomb in it so many times in this movie that I'm like, this movie doesn't need this. It's just very pointless to me. But this movie was just boring otherwise. Regretting You, but I regret watching this movie too. This movie, I was not the biggest fan of It Ends With Us, but I didn't put on my worst of the year list. Regretting You, on the other hand, it's boring. It is so dull. Allison Williams and Dave Franco have no chemistry whatsoever. Mason Thames and McKenna Grace kind of do, but they're not very interesting. I found like the main conflict of the movie to just be they were just padding the runtime of this movie. It's like literally every conversation, everything that happens in this movie could have been resolved with one conversation. One. And also, Mason Thames, he's a movie buff like me, but he has only posters of Paramount movies. And there's some where it's like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. But the majority of them do not make sense. And it's just baffling to me that that was okay. Like, man, this movie was bad. Fixed. Now, when I reviewed Strays, I said, I didn't mind the fact that it was vulgar or crass or crude or disgusting or anything like that. I just minded the fact that it wasn't funny. That's basically the same thing about this movie. I thought the main characters were just obnoxious. The main character's voice was just screeching. The only funny person in the movie was Idris Elba. So, there's that. In a cast full of comedians, the one who's not a comedian first is the funniest person in the movie. Think about that for a minute. And it's just, there's so many gross jokes that are just not funny, and I'm just like, I just don't like it anymore when it's like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I just don't like it when a lot of these kid things are kind of given the R-rated treatment, and I'm just so tired of it. The Pickup. This movie was so boring. Like, how do you have Eddie Murphy, Pete Davidson, and Keke Palmer in one movie, and yet everyone is just dropping the ball? This movie is so unfunny. I don't even have a joke for it. It's just so boring. I could not care about anything that happened in this movie. Until Dawn, this movie sucked because it didn't really follow the video games and the characters themselves were pretty bland. And I feel bad because Odessa Azion is actually in this movie and she was phenomenal in Marty Supreme. But man, was this movie just uninteresting. It felt like a movie that didn't know what it was going to do, but they just slapped the name Until Dawn onto the movie. It's like, okay, I guess we can sell it. But I just didn't find this movie to be that interesting. And also, the last honorable mention is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I don't mind seeing movies where it's like, I'm not maybe the target audience, so maybe if I watch this movie, maybe I will get into it a little bit more. Man, was this movie bad. I hated the leads in this movie. I thought everyone was just phoning it in. I felt they didn't really use the animatronics well. The only time it ever got really interesting was when they actually kind of started playing Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which I kind of recognized from the movie. But other than that, I couldn't really care. There was one performance in this movie that I thought was enjoyably bad. But I didn't get enough of him. So this movie just, also the scares were just lackluster in my opinion. Midly better than the last movie, but nothing that made me nervous. So that is very annoying. But let's get into my actual top 10 worst movies of 2025. Now, there are going to be some in this video that I did not review. Either I didn't want to make a video for it, just straight up, I did not want to make a video for it. Or I just didn't have the time, or maybe I saw it a little too late. But I'll dive into some of those reasons because, man, these were really bad. At number 10 is The Electric State. How did the Russo brothers go from making the Avengers movies to making this? It's just baffling to me. And you kind of rope in a bunch of people in it like Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown, and those are just, and that's not even counting all the voice actors who are in this movie. Like, the visual effects themselves can be kind of cool, but I just felt a lot of it was just tonally inconsistent. I didn't care for a lot of the characters. I didn't care for what they were trying to do. It was just a mess, and it was just a waste of $300 million, if not more. At number 9 is I Know What You Did Last Summer. You know what I did last summer? I sat through this crap. This movie was not scary. The killing was like, the kills themselves were just not very interesting or creative. The characters themselves were just very bland and boring. Didn't look like Jennifer Love Hewitt really wanted to be in it. And the twist reveal of the movie that the hero of the first two movies, Freddie Prinze Jr., is now the killer in this movie, is dumb. It's really, really, really dumb. I hated what they did with this character. I'm not even a fan of I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I'm offended. Like, why would you go in that direction? Why would you do that? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. I did not care for this movie. At number 8, Hurry Up Tomorrow. Now, I didn't review this movie, but I really should have because I probably would have had a good time reviewing it. But man, The Weeknd. I liked your music for a while, but after this movie, oh boy, I don't know if I can listen to you again. Everyone in this movie is awful, particularly The Weeknd. I thought he was particularly bad in this movie. Barry Keoghan is not as good as he usually is. Jenna Ortega is probably the best in this movie by default, but the movie itself is just so all over the place, and I felt like it was just a vanity project. Like, everything I worry that Timothée Chalamet is going to do this is what that movie is. Because this movie was a vanity project for The Weeknd, and it just fell flat at every conceivable turn. When you'll know whether or not you like this movie by like the first minute when you see The Weeknd in the mirror. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. But man, is this movie bad. At number 7 is The Unbreakable Boy. This movie is insulting. I don't think I've ever seen a movie be as insulting as this one. And this movie is only at number 7. So think about that for a minute. The actors in this movie, particularly Zachary Levi, is just awful in this movie. I could not care for this movie one bit. It should be telling that this movie was also made in 2021. It was supposed to come out in 2022, but then like days before the movie was supposed to come out, they pushed it back, and only now they decided to release it. Yeah, and also looking into a lot of the stuff involving the actual story, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually really bad. At number 6 is Smurfs. Do I need to say more? Okay, I guess I do. The fact that they market this movie with Rihanna as Smurfette and really nobody else in this movie is just obvious. It's an obvious cash grab. Literally, the second they get into the human world, you literally hear Don't Stop the Music by Rihanna. And other than that, the music itself is just very dull. It's like there's nothing about them. The animation itself is pretty awful. The jokes are awful. The characters, annoying. The animation is terrible. And honestly, I didn't even bother seeing this movie in the theater because, like, why would I subject myself to that? So I subjected myself to it on Paramount Plus, where I watched it and hated myself. And this is only number 6. Think about that. At number 5 is The Strangers Chapter 2. I just wish this franchise would just end. I hated it. I hated the scares. I hate what they do with the strangers themselves, where it's like, what was scary about them is that you didn't know anything about them. This movie says, why don't we give you the backstories of some of these characters? Yeah, let's do that. Oh my god. I hated everything about this movie. It wasn't scary. It was very boring. There's like one shot that's like a long take that was probably alright, but even then, I did not care for this movie one bit. At number 4, Juliet and Romeo, another movie I didn't review, but do you really want to see a Juliet and Romeo? No. If you didn't even hear this movie, first off, good. Second, it's basically a musical version of Romeo and Juliet, and it's pretty bad. Really bad. I'm not even a fan of the Romeo and Juliet story, but I would rather watch the Leonardo DiCaprio version again. I would also rather watch the version from Hot Fuzz than this. This movie is atrocious. The musical numbers, they're terrible. The only time I was kind of invested in a musical number was when they mentioned parachutes, and I looked it up in the theater, which I was the only person in the theater watching this movie. They literally say the word parachute, but I looked it up and parachutes weren't invented for like another 200 years. You couldn't even get that right. And also, the insulting ending where, has the ending where Romeo and Juliet, they die and their parents cry over their dead bodies. Only this time, they're not dead. They faked their deaths and now they're like off and living their lives together while their parents mourn them. I could not believe it. I could not believe what I was watching when I saw that. It is shockingly bad. I hated it. And that was only number 4. At number 3 is Kinda Pregnant. This movie, now look, I have nothing against Amy Schumer personally. I don't hate her, but I also don't like her. I did like Trainwreck, but I haven't really liked a lot of her other movies since then, but I've never gone full-blown hatred towards Amy Schumer by any means. This movie is pretty bad. Not just pretty bad, insultingly bad. I don't mind comedies that are pushing the envelope. I don't mind comedies that people consider offensive. Like, I will watch Tropic Thunder and Blazing Saddles at least once a year because I think those movies are absolutely hilarious. But what offends me more are the comedies that don't think they're offensive. This movie is one of them. This movie has jokes in it that are just absolutely horrendous. There's a moment where Amy Schumer, who pretends to have this fake pregnant belly, she's getting into like a yoga position from these other pregnant women, and she winds up doing a pratfall, landing on her stomach. And that was one of the few moments where I watched a comedy and my mouth just dropped. It was shocking. And not only that, but the plot twist in this movie, well, not really twist, you see everything coming from a mile away. Once a character's introduced, you know what role they're going to play. When you find out, like, what's going to happen at this scene, it's like, yeah, you know what's going to happen. It's just frustrating. This movie was horrible. I did not laugh once. Ugh. At number 2 is In the Lost Lands. I said this after I reviewed it. It's like, this may be the worst movie I see this year, but sadly, it's only number 2. Dave Bautista and Mila Jovovich are just doing this for a paycheck. They're not even trying. The world itself looks very bland and very dull and just boring. It's just heavily reliant on exposition. This movie is never fun, never engaging. It's just a waste. It's just a wasteland of waste. And at number one, pretty much everyone else's worst movie of 2026, if they didn't see Snow White, War of the Worlds. This movie is egregiously bad. Everything about this movie is awful. Every actor in this movie is awful. Ice Cube in particular, he is awful. Doing things just like, whoa, and all that. Wow, I could not believe how bad his performance is in this movie. The visuals themselves look atrocious. The twists in this movie are absolutely ridiculous. The Amazon product placement, dumb. The fact that like all this is shot from like, you know, they kind of shoot from like laptops and such, dumb. Like, look, I've heard a lot of excuses for this movie saying, you know, oh, we didn't really have the budget to make it. Well, I've seen movies with smaller budgets do really well. Or, oh, we shot this during the pandemic, so we really couldn't shoot, you know, all together and such. Okay, but I've seen other movies that were shot during the pandemic that actually felt like regular movies. So what is your excuse? Why did you want to make this movie? There is nothing about this movie that works. There's nothing about this movie that makes sense. This is not even a movie that's like so bad it's good. It just makes me mad. And that's the thing about all these movies on this list, is that I was just mad watching them. I was mad watching all of these movies. And I don't want to feel mad and just walk away from a movie and being like, what a waste. And all these movies, they were just wasteful. I just want to leave these behind in 2025, never to think about them again. And then hopefully 2026, there will be much better movies. Within the next coming days, I will go over some movies of 2026 that I'm really looking forward to. But for right now, I'm going to try to calm myself down because, man, did I get angry at some of these movies. So, more some of the worst movies of 2025 to you. Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.